plasma bolt missed Commander Elena Vasquez by inches, scorching the bulkhead behind her. She dove behind a console as another volley tore through the bridge of her dying ship. Around her, the crew of the Valor lay dead or dying. The Krell Armada had been merciless. 300 ships against her fleet of 40. It wasn't war. It was extermination. Her communications officer, the last one breathing besides her, looked up with blood streaming from a gash across his forehead. "They're hailing us again, Commander!" Elena knew what they wanted. Surrender. Unconditional. The Carol Empire didn't negotiate. They conquered. Her people, the colonists of New Terra, numbered barely 2 million souls spread across 5 settlements. Without the fleet, they were defenseless. "Put them through," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. The view screen flickered to life. High Warlord Texan appeared, his reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among his kind. "Commander Vasquez, your fleet is destroyed. Your world is next. Unless you accept our terms." "What terms?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer would be slavery, tribute, extinction by another name. "Marriage," Thexan said, and Elena felt her blood freeze. "The Krell Empire has ancient laws. A bond of blood between our peoples. You will wed one of our choosing. A human! Someone we have found who can ensure your compliance." "A human?" Elena's mind raced. This made no sense. The Krell had never shown interest in such arrangements. "We discovered him on the Outer Rim. Drifting in a damaged escape pod. He claims to be from Earth. The old world. He has agreed to our terms in exchange for technology he needs. You will marry him, or we will begin orbital bombardment of New Terra in 1 hour." Elena looked at the tactical display. Her ship was the last one capable of fighting, and it was bleeding atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. She had no cards left to play. "Let me see him first," she demanded. The screen split. A man appeared in the other half. He looked ordinary. Brown hair, green eyes, a face that belonged in any human colony. He wore civilian clothes, grimy and torn, but something in his expression unsettled her. He wasn't afraid. Not of the Krell, not of this insane arrangement. He looked almost bored. "My name is Jake Morrison," he said quietly. "I know this is sudden, but if you agree, I can help your people." "Help us?" Elena laughed bitterly. "You're working with them. You're part of this invasion." "No," Jake said, and his voice carried an edge that made her pause. "I'm not working with them." "They think I am. There's a difference." Dexon's translator chimed in. "You have 30 seconds to decide, Commander." Elena looked at her dying ship, at her fallen crew, at the world below that depended on her. She thought of the children in the settlements, the families, the dreams of a future now hanging by a thread. "I agree," she said. "I'll marry him." Dexon's smile widened. "Wise choice. The ceremony will be conducted immediately aboard our flagship. We have prepared the necessary documents under human law. Your signature will bind both your fates." The screen went dark. Elena slumped against the console, exhaustion and despair washing over her. She had just sold herself to save her people. And to a stranger who claimed he could help but was somehow involved with the monsters who had just slaughtered her fleet. She didn't notice Jake's reflection in the dark view screen, or the faint smile that crossed his face before the transmission ended. A smile that held no warmth, only promise. A promise of violence yet to come. The Krell shuttles arrived within minutes to transport her to the flagship. Elena Vasquez went to meet her fate, unaware that she had just married the single most dangerous human being in the known galaxy. The Krell flagship, Deathbringer, dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Its corridors stretched for miles, its weapons could crack planets, and its crew numbered in the tens of thousands. Elena walked through those corridors with Krell guards flanking her, their energy weapons trained on her back. They brought her to a ceremonial chamber where Thexan waited alongside Jake Morrison. The human stood calmly, his hands clasped behind his back. He had cleaned up somewhat, though his clothes were still worn. Up close, Elena could see the scars on his hands, the kind that came from hard fighting, not accidents. "Let us proceed," Thexan announced. A Krell official, draped in ceremonial robes, approached with a data tablet. "Commander Elena Vasquez of New Terra, do you consent to this union with Jake Morrison, formerly of Earth?" Elena's throat was dry. She looked at Jake, searching his face for any hint of his intentions. He met her eyes and gave the slightest nod, so small she almost missed it. "I consent," she said. "Jake Morrison, do you consent to this union with Elena Vasquez?" "I do," Jake replied. His voice was calm, almost conversational. The official pressed buttons on the tablet. "By the laws of the Krell Empire and the legal frameworks of human civilization, you are now bound. The terms are thus. New Terra will submit to Krell authority. Commander Vasquez will serve as governor under our oversight. Jake Morrison will serve as enforcer of Krell law on all human worlds in this sector. Failure to comply will result in immediate execution of both parties and the destruction of New Terra." Elena felt the trap close around her. They hadn't just married her off. They had made her a puppet ruler and turned Jake into their weapon against humanity. "Do you both understand and accept these terms?" Thexan asked, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Yes," Elena said, her voice barely a whisper. "Yeah," Jake said. "I understand perfectly." Something in his tone made Texan pause, but the warlord's arrogance won out. He gestured to the guards. "Take them to their quarters. They will have one night to consummate this arrangement. Tomorrow we begin operations to integrate New Terra into the Empire." The guards escorted them through more endless corridors to a large chamber that served as quarters. It was luxurious by military standards, probably meant for visiting dignitaries. The moment the door sealed behind them, Elena rounded on Jake. "What kind of game are you playing?" she demanded. "You helped them destroy my fleet. My people. And for what? What did they promise you?" Jake walked to the far wall and examined the seams where panels met. "They promised me access to their quantum drive technology. I needed it to repair my ship's faster-than-light core. That's it? That's why you betrayed humanity? I didn't betray anyone." Jake's fingers found a small panel and pried it open, revealing the circuitry behind. "I told you! They think I'm working with them." "What are you doing?" Elena watched as he pulled a small device from his pocket, something that looked like a data chip. "Insurance," Jake said. He plugged the chip into the circuitry and pressed a sequence of buttons. "This room is now off their surveillance grid. We can talk freely." Elena's hand moved to her sidearm, but Jake raised a hand. "Please don't! I'm on your side. I know that's hard to believe right now, but everything I've done has been to get to this exact position." "Explain," Elena said, her weapon half drawn. "Right now." Jake sat on the edge of the bed and finally, for the first time since she had seen him, he looked tired. "I am from Earth. The real Earth, not one of the colonies. I left 20 years ago on a deep space exploration mission. My ship was damaged, and I drifted for a long time before the Krell found me." 20 years? You don't look old enough. Cry sleep. "Time dilation! Take your pick!" Jake shrugged. "When the Krell woke me up, they were excited. They had never met someone from original Earth before. They tested me, scanned me. Tried to figure out what made Earth humans different from colony humans." "What did they find?" "That's the interesting part," Jake said. "They found nothing. Genetically, I'm the same as you. But they became convinced that Earth humans possessed some kind of advantage. Some edge that made us different. They decided to use me as an experiment." Elena slowly holstered her weapon. "What kind of experiment?" "They gave me enhancements," Jake said. "Neural implants. Genetic modifications. Physical augmentation. They wanted to create the perfect human soldier to lead their forces. Someone who could control other humans, keep them in line. So you are their weapon." "No," Jake's eyes hardened. "I let them think they were enhancing me. But the modifications they made unlocked something they didn't expect, something they couldn't measure or predict." "What are you talking about?" Jake stood and walked to the viewport that looked out over the Krell fleet. Hundreds of warships floated in formation around Deathbringer. Humans are different, Elena. Not genetically, not physically, but psychologically. We have something the Krell don't understand. We call it adaptability, creativity, unpredictability. The Krell are powerful, but they're rigid. They think in straight lines. They follow protocols. And you don't? I haven't followed a protocol since the day I left Earth. Jake turned back to her. The enhancements they gave me didn't make me their slave. They made me something else entirely. Something dangerous. And tomorrow, when we start operations on New Terra, I'm going to show them exactly what they created. Elena wanted to believe him, but years of military training made her cautious. How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? How do I know you're not playing me right now? You don't, Jake admitted. But in about 6 hours, when we're scheduled to arrive at New Terra, you're going to see. The Krell think they've won. They think they have a compliant governor and a human enforcer. What they actually have is a countdown to the biggest mistake they've ever made. You're planning to fight them? Alone? There are thousands of Krell on this ship alone. Not alone, Jake said. I've been planting code throughout their systems for the past 3 weeks, ever since they brought me aboard. The chip I just installed was the final piece. At the right moment, I can crash their shields, disable their weapons, and lock down their command structure. Elena felt a spark of hope for the first time since the battle began. But even if you do that, they have hundreds of ships. We have nothing. We have something they don't, Jake said. We have the element of surprise. And we have me. What makes you so special? Jake's expression became unreadable. Tomorrow you'll see, but I need you to trust me until then. Can you do that? Elena thought about her dead crew, her dying ship, her people waiting below on New Terra expecting salvation or destruction. She thought about the impossible situation she was in, and the stranger who claimed he could fix it all. I don't trust you, she said honestly. But I don't have a choice, so I'll wait. But if you betray me, if you hurt my people, I'll find a way to kill you. Even if it costs me everything, Jake nodded slowly. Fair enough, get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be intense. Elena didn't sleep. She spent the night pacing the quarters, watching Jake as he worked on another piece of equipment he had somehow smuggled aboard. He didn't speak much, focused entirely on his task. As the hours passed, she noticed things about him. The way his hands moved with absolute precision. The way his eyes tracked multiple data streams simultaneously on the small screen he worked with. The way he occasionally paused and tilted his head, as if listening to something only he could hear. Whatever the Krell had done to him, it had changed him in ways she couldn't begin to understand, and that terrified her almost as much as the Krell themselves. When the door chimed announcing their escort had arrived, Jake powered down his equipment and stood. Ready? He asked. No, Elena said, but let's do this anyway. They walked out to meet the guards, and Elena realized with growing dread that she had just bet the survival of her entire species on a man she had known for less than a day. A man who was either humanity's salvation or its final executioner. The journey to New Terra took 6 hours at sublight speed. Elena and Jake were confined to their quarters for most of the trip, though Thexan summoned them once to the command deck to witness the approach. The warlord clearly enjoyed showing off his power. "Behold your world, Commander," Thexan said, gesturing at the view screen that displayed New Terra in all its beauty. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. 2 million souls living in blissful ignorance of the fleet bearing down on them. Soon it will be properly integrated into the Empire. Your people will learn to serve. Elena kept her face neutral, but inside she was screaming. Jake stood beside her, seemingly unbothered by the display. He watched the tactical screens with mild interest, as if he were a tourist observing something quaint. The first settlement we will secure is New Providence, Thexan continued. It contains the planetary government center. We will land troops there and establish control. You, Commander, We'll address your people and explain the new reality. Jake Morrison will stand beside you as a symbol of human cooperation with the Empire. When do we land? Elena asked. In 3 hours. Prepare yourself! Thexan dismissed them with a wave. Back in their quarters, Elena immediately rounded on Jake. 3 hours. You said you had a plan. Whatever it is, it needs to happen now. Jake pulled out the device he had been working on all night. It looked like a standard communications pad, but Elena could see modifications throughout its structure. The plan starts the moment we enter the landing craft, he said. Once we're away from the main ship, I'll activate the virus I planted. It will cascade through their network and hit critical systems within minutes. What about the other ships in the fleet? The virus will spread to them too. We'll have maybe 30 minutes before they figure out what's happening and isolate their networks. That's our window. Our window to do what exactly? Even with their shields down, we don't have weapons to fight them. Jake's smile was cold. We don't need weapons. We just need chaos, and me. You keep saying that. What exactly can you do that's so impressive? Instead of answering, Jake held up his hand. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his skin began to shimmer. The air around his hand distorted, and Elena felt a wave of heat wash over her. When the shimmer faded, his hand was glowing with a faint blue light. The Krell enhancements weren't just neural or genetic, Jake explained. They rebuilt parts of my body at the molecular level. They gave me the ability to manipulate energy, convert it, redirect it, amplify it. They thought they were making me a better soldier. What they actually did was turn me into a weapon unlike anything they've ever seen. Elena stared at his glowing hand. How is that possible? Humans have potential the Krell don't understand. Our brains, our nervous systems, they're adaptable in ways that other species aren't. The modifications they made tapped into that potential. They created a bridge between human consciousness and fundamental forces of physics. Jake closed his hand, and the glow faded. I've spent 3 weeks learning what I can do. I'm still figuring it out, but I know enough to hurt them. Badly. Show me, Elena demanded. Show me what you can really do. Jake looked around the room and focused on a metal chair in the corner. He extended his hand toward it. The air shimmered again, and the chair began to glow. Then it started to melt, the metal liquefying and dripping to the floor. Jake closed his hand and the effect stopped, leaving behind a puddle of cooling metal. That's not possible, Elena whispered. The energy required to melt steel that fast would be enormous. I'm converting ambient energy, Jake explained. Electromagnetic radiation, heat, even the motion of particles in the air. Gathering it and focusing it. The Krell don't have sensors that can detect what I'm doing. To them, it looks like spontaneous combustion. They think it's a malfunction in my implants. Elena's mind raced through the implications. If Jake could do this, if he could manipulate energy on that scale, then he wasn't just dangerous to individual Krell soldiers. He was dangerous to their entire fleet. The landing craft, she said suddenly. You're going to sabotage it. No need, Jake said. I'm going to use it as a demonstration. When the virus hits and their shields drop, I'm going to show the Krell what happens when they try to enslave humanity. I'm going to destroy their flagship. You can't destroy a ship that size. It's miles long. The armor alone would take sustained bombardment from an entire fleet. I don't need to destroy all of it, Jake said. I just need to destroy the right parts. The power core, the command bridge, the shield generators. I've memorized their ship's layout. I know where every critical system is located. Even if you do that, there are hundreds of other ships. They'll kill us all. Not if we move fast enough. Once Deathbringer falls, the other ships will panic. They've never lost a flagship before. Their command structure is rigid, remember? Without clear orders, they'll hesitate. That hesitation will buy us time to get to New Terra's defense grid and activate it. Elena shook her head in disbelief. The defense grid has been offline for months. We couldn't get the power systems working. Because the Krell were jamming them, Jake said. Once their fleet is in chaos, the jamming will stop. Your engineers can get the grid online. and then we'll have a fighting chance. It was insane. The entire plan relied on so many things going right that Elena couldn't believe she was even considering it. But she had seen what Jake could do. She had seen the confidence in his eyes, and she had no other options. If this works, she said slowly, what happens after? Even if we drive off this fleet, the Kel Empire will send more. Bigger fleets! They'll never stop! Then we make it hurt so badly that they think twice, Jake replied. We show them that humanity isn't prey. We're predators, and if they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget. A chime sounded. Their escort had arrived. It was time to go to the landing craft. Elena took a deep breath and straightened her uniform. She was a commander of the New Terra fleet. She had sworn to protect her people. If that meant trusting a stranger with impossible powers and an insane plan, then so be it. Let's go save my world, she said. Jake nodded and followed her to the door. As they walked out, Elena caught one last glimpse of his expression. The boredom was gone. In its place was something fierce and hungry. Something that reminded her of wolves she had seen on nature preserves right before they struck. The Krell had made a weapon. They just didn't realize they had pointed it at themselves. The landing craft was massive, designed to carry a full company of Krell shock troops along with their equipment. Elena and Jake were strapped into seats near the front, surrounded by dozens of armored Krell warriors. Thexon had decided to lead the invasion personally, and he sat in the command seat, barking orders to his subordinates. We will land at the central plaza of New Providence, Thexon announced. Commander Vasquez will broadcast a message of surrender to her people. Resistance will be met with immediate lethal force. We will make examples of anyone who defies the Empire. Elena felt sick but kept her expression neutral. Beside her, Jake appeared relaxed, almost casual. His eyes tracked the Krell movements with perfect precision. She wondered if the enhancements let him predict their actions or if he was just naturally good at reading people. The landing craft detached from Deathbringer with a lurch. Through the viewports, Elena could see the massive flagship receding as they descended toward New Terra's atmosphere. Dozens of other landing craft followed in formation, carrying more troops for the occupation. Jake leaned close to her and whispered, 2 minutes. Elena's heart hammered in her chest. 2 minutes until Jake activated his virus. 2 minutes until everything went wrong or went right. She found herself praying to God she hadn't believed in since childhood. The craft shook as it hit atmosphere. The Krell troops checked their weapons, preparing for deployment. Thexon was reviewing tactical data on his command screen, completely confident in his victory. 1 minute. Elena watched Jake's hands. They were steady, resting calmly on his knees. She wondered how he could be so calm before attempting something so suicidal. 30 seconds. The craft leveled out. They were in the lower atmosphere now, descending toward New Providence. Elena could see the city through the viewport, its buildings gleaming in the sunlight. People were visible in the streets, looking up at the invasion force. 10 seconds. Jake's right hand moved slightly, activating the device in his pocket through some kind of neural link. Elena saw nothing happen, no visible change, but Jake nodded once. The virus was active. For a long moment, nothing happened. The landing craft continued its descent. The Krell troops remained alert. Thexon kept reviewing his data. Then alarms started screaming throughout the craft. Shield failure, a Krell technician reported. Multiple systems going offline. Communications disrupted. I cannot reach Deathbringer. Thexon surged to his feet. What is happening? Find the source of this malfunction. More alarms. The lighting flickered. Elena felt the craft shudder as stabilizers failed and backup systems tried to compensate. It's spreading, another technician said, panic creeping into his voice. All networked systems are compromised. I am detecting similar failures across the fleet. Thexon spun toward Jake. You did this, Jake smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Took you long enough to figure it out. The warlord drew his plasma pistol and aimed it at Jake's head. You will stop this now or I will execute you and the commander both. Go ahead, Jake said. "Kill me. See what happens." Thexan's finger tightened on the trigger. Elena tensed, ready to throw herself at the warlord even though she knew it was futile. But before Thexan could fire, Jake moved. He moved faster than Elena had ever seen a human move. One moment he was sitting, strapped into his seat. The next he was standing, the restraints torn away like paper, and his hand was gripping Texan's wrist. The plasma pistol discharged into the ceiling. Krell troops shouted and raised their weapons. But Jake was already moving again. He twisted Thexan's arm with a crack of breaking bone and used the warlord as a shield as plasma bolts filled the air. "Elena, down!" Jake shouted. She dropped to the floor as energy weapons fire turned the landing craft into chaos. Jake held Thexan with one hand while his other hand began to glow. The blue light Elena had seen in their quarters returned, but brighter, more intense. Jake thrust his glowing hand toward the nearest group of Krell soldiers. The air between them shimmered and exploded. Elena felt a wave of heat wash over her as the soldiers were thrown backward, their armor melting, their weapons sparking and dying. "Impossible!" Thexan gasped, his voice distorted by pain. "No human can do this! You made me into something new," Jake said. He threw Thexan aside and stood in the center of the craft, surrounded by Krell warriors. His hands glowed brighter. "You wanted a weapon! Congratulations! You got one." The Krell opened fire. Dozens of plasma bolts converged on Jake's position. Elena screamed, certain she was about to watch him die. But the bolts never reached him. They stopped in midair, frozen in a sphere of shimmering energy around Jake. Elena watched in disbelief as the captured energy swirled and compressed, growing brighter and brighter. Jake's entire body was glowing now, his eyes blazing with blue fire. "Here's your lesson," Jake said, his voice echoing with power. "Humanity adapts. We evolve. We survive. And when you push us, we push back harder." He released the energy. The explosion tore through the landing craft. Elena felt herself thrown against the bulkhead as the walls buckled and the floor gave way. Krell soldiers were tossed like toys, their armor no protection against the raw force Jake had unleashed. The craft began to spin, falling out of control toward New Terra. Through the failing viewports, Elena could see other landing craft experiencing similar problems, their systems crashed by Jake's virus, their payloads in chaos. Above them, visible even through the clouds, Deathbringer was burning. Explosions rippled across its hull as critical systems failed. The virus had done its work, and the mighty flagship was dying. Jake appeared beside Elena, pulling her to her feet. His glow had faded, but his strength remained. "We need to get out of here before this thing hits the ground." "The emergency pods," Elena gasped. "Rear compartment." They ran through the broken craft, stepping over dead and dying Krell. Jake's attack had devastated them, but a few survivors tried to stop their escape. Jake dispatched them with casual efficiency, his enhanced speed and strength making him virtually unstoppable. They reached the emergency pod bay and piled into one of the small craft. Jake sealed the hatch and hit the launch sequence. The pod shot away from the dying landing craft just as it began its terminal descent. Through the pod's small viewport, Elena watched the landing craft impact the ground in a fireball. Other craft were crashing across New Providence, creating a chaotic battlefield. But the Krell invasion was broken. Without their command structure, without their systems, they were vulnerable. "Look," Jake said, pointing upward. Elena looked and saw Deathbringer falling from orbit. The massive flagship was breaking apart as it descended, pieces trailing fire across the sky. It was beautiful and terrible. The death of something that had seemed invincible. "We did it," Elena whispered. "We actually did it." "We slowed them down," Jake corrected, "but this isn't over. The surviving Krell will regroup. The other ships in the fleet will recover. We need to get to your defense grid and get it online before they coordinate a response." The pod's autopilot guided them toward New Providence's command center. As they descended, Elena could see her people emerging from buildings, watching the chaos in the sky. They didn't know what had happened yet. They didn't know that a single human had just crippled an Empire's invasion force, but they would. And when they did, everything would change. Elena looked at Jake, this stranger she had married out of desperation. This man who had become something more than human, something the Krell couldn't understand or control. What are you really? She asked. Jake met her eyes, and for a moment she saw past the power and the confidence to something deeper. Something lonely and driven and absolutely unbreakable. I'm human, he said simply. Just human. That's enough. The pod touched down and they emerged into a world transformed. The war had begun, and humanity's champion had just announced himself in the most dramatic way possible. Now came the hard part. Surviving what came next. The command center of New Providence was in chaos when Elena and Jake arrived. Military personnel were running between stations, civilian officials were shouting questions, and the defense coordinator was trying to make sense of the tactical situation unfolding across the planet. Commander Vasquez! Defense coordinator Lisa Martinez exclaimed when she saw Elena. Thank God. We saw your fleet destroyed. We thought you were dead! What's happening up there? The Krell fleet is tearing itself apart. There's no time to explain everything, Elena said. We need to get the planetary defense grid online now. How long will it take? Lisa's face fell. We've been trying for months. The Krell jamming is too strong. Without that interference cleared, we can't power up the primary weapons. The jamming is down, Jake interjected. Their systems are crashed. You have a window of maybe 20 minutes before they restore basic functions and another hour before they're fully operational again. Use that time. Lisa stared at Jake. Who are you? Someone who just bought you a chance to fight back, Jake said. But only if you move fast. Get your engineers on those defense platforms. I need firing solutions on every Krell ship in orbit within the next 15 minutes. The authority in Jake's voice was undeniable. Lisa found herself nodding before she realized she was taking orders from a stranger. She turned and started barking commands to her team. Elena pulled Jake aside. What's your plan? Even with the defense grid, we're outgunned. There are still hundreds of Krell ships up there. We're not going to destroy them all, Jake said. We're going to make them leave. Watch. He walked to the main tactical display and studied the positions of the Krell fleet. His enhanced mind processed the data with incredible speed, calculating trajectories, weapon ranges, and optimal targeting solutions. Here, he said, pointing to a cluster of ships. These are supply vessels. Lightly armored, carrying fuel and ammunition. If we hit them with coordinated fire from the defense grid, they'll create secondary explosions that will damage the ships around them. That could work, Elena said, seeing his logic. But it won't be enough to drive them off. No, Jake agreed. But it will scare them. Combine that with the loss of Deathbringer and the death of Thexan, and they'll be in disarray. That's when I make my move. What move? Jake's expression became grim. I'm going back up there. To the largest remaining Krell warship. I'm going to kill their second-in-command and anyone else who tries to continue the attack. I'm going to make them so afraid of what I can do that they'll run. Elena grabbed his arm. You can't be serious. Even with your powers, you're one person. They'll overwhelm you. They'll try, Jake said. But remember what I told you. The Krell think in straight lines. They follow protocols. They've never encountered anything like me before. I'm going to use that confusion against them. This is suicide. No, Jake said quietly. Suicide would be doing nothing and letting them regroup. This is war. And in war, you do what's necessary. Before Elena could argue further, Lisa called out, Defense grid is powering up. We have full system access. This is incredible. Whatever you did to their jamming, it's completely offline. Target those supply ships, Jake ordered. Fire on my mark. Lisa hesitated, looking at Elena for confirmation. The commander nodded. Whatever Jake was planning, she had committed to trusting him. Backing out now would doom them all. The tactical display showed the defense grid weapons coming online across New Terra. Orbital platforms that had been dormant for months suddenly blazed with power, Railguns, particle beams, missile banks, all calibrating and targeting the Krell fleet. "Locked on," Lisa reported. "All platforms ready to fire." Jake watched the display, his enhanced mind calculating timing and trajectories. He was waiting for something, though Elena couldn't guess what. Then she saw it. The surviving Krell ships were beginning to organize. Their command structure was reforming around the second-largest warship, a vessel called Ravager. They were preparing to coordinate a response to the chaos Jake had created. Now, Jake said, "Fire everything!" The defense grid opened up. Beams of coherent energy and streams of hypersonic projectiles lanced up from New Terra's surface and orbital platforms. They converged on the Krell supply vessels with devastating precision. The first ship exploded in a bloom of fire that consumed 3 nearby vessels. The second created a chain reaction that tore through an entire squadron. Within seconds, 24 Krell ships were burning or breaking apart. The Krell fleet scattered, abandoning formation as captains tried to save their own ships. It was chaos on a massive scale, exactly what Jake had wanted. "Transport," Jake said. "I need a small, fast ship that can reach orbit quickly." "The atmospheric interceptors," Elena said. "They're designed for rapid deployment, but they're not meant for the kind of combat you're talking about." "I don't need weapons," Jake said. "I just need to get close." Elena realized he meant to use himself as the weapon. She wanted to protest, to find another way, but one look at his face told her there was no other option. Jake had made his choice, he was going to fight, and nothing she said would stop him. "Bay 12, she said quietly. "Take Interceptor 7. "It's the fastest," Jake nodded. He started to leave, then paused and turned back. "If I don't make it back, activate Protocol Omega." "What's Protocol Omega?" "Something I programmed into the virus before I activated it. If I die, the virus will restart and target the Krell fleet's life support systems. It'll give your people time to evacuate to the outlying settlements before the Krell can recover enough to attack again." Elena felt cold. "You planned for your own death?" "I always plan for the worst," Jake said. "But I don't intend to die today. I intend to win." He left before she could respond, moving with that supernatural speed toward the launch bays. Elena watched him go. Feeling a complex mix of emotions she couldn't begin to untangle, Lisa approached her. "Commander, we have confirmation that Deathbringer has completely broken apart. Total loss. The Krell are transmitting distress calls across all frequencies. They're in full panic." "Good," Elena said. "Keep hitting them. Focus on capital ships. Disable as many as possible." "Yes, ma'am." Elena turned to the tactical display and watched as a single interceptor launched from Bay 12. It accelerated toward orbit with impossible speed, weaving through debris and Krell fire with precision that suggested the pilot was more than human. Because he was more than human now. The Krell had made sure of that. Jake's interceptor reached orbit in less than 4 minutes, a feat that should have killed any normal pilot from the acceleration alone. But Jake's enhanced body handled the stress easily. He could feel every system in the small craft, his neural implants letting him interface with the controls at a level no other human could match. The Krell fleet was in chaos around him. Ships burned, debris scattered, and confused transmissions filled every channel. Jake ignored it all and focused on his target, Ravager, the second-largest ship in the fleet. It was still impressive despite the damage it had taken. Nearly 3 miles long, bristling with weapons, and carrying enough firepower to level a continent. The ship that would have destroyed New Terra if Jake hadn't acted. Now, it was going to be his next victim. Jake brought the interceptor alongside Ravager's hull, matching speed and trajectory. The Krell were too disorganized to notice one small craft among the hundreds of debris pieces floating in orbit. He guided the interceptor to a maintenance airlock, the kind used by repair crews. Then he did something no sane person would attempt. He opened the interceptor's canopy while still in vacuum. His enhanced body didn't need air the way normal humans would. The Krell modifications had restructured his respiratory system, his cardiovascular system, even his cellular metabolism. He could survive in vacuum for nearly an hour before the damage became permanent. Jake pushed off from the interceptor and floated to the airlock. His glowing hands made quick work of the locking mechanism, overriding the security with bursts of directed electromagnetic energy. The airlock opened, and he pulled himself inside. Air rushed in as the lock cycled. Jake stood in the small chamber and felt his body adjust back to a pressurized environment. Then he opened the inner door and stepped into Ravager. Alarms immediately shrieked. Krell warriors came running down the corridor, their energy weapons raised. Jake didn't give them time to fire. He moved like lightning, his enhanced reflexes letting him close the distance before they could react. His glowing hands tore through armor and flesh with equal ease. The Krell's weapons might as well have been toys. They couldn't track him, couldn't hit him, couldn't stop him. Jake left a trail of bodies as he fought his way deeper into the ship. He knew exactly where he was going. The command bridge was in the center of the vessel, protected by layers of armor and security. Getting there would require going through hundreds of Krell soldiers. Jake smiled grimly and kept moving. The ship's internal sensors detected him, and more warriors converged on his position. They came in squads, in platoons, in overwhelming numbers. Jake killed them all. His powers grew stronger with each fight, fed by the ambient energy of the ship's systems, the heat of discharged weapons, the electromagnetic fields that permeated every corridor. A Krell commander tried to stop him with a powered armor suit. Jake tore it apart with his bare hands, the metal yielding like clay under his enhanced strength. The commander inside died screaming. Security barriers slammed down, trying to trap him. Jake melted through them with focused energy bursts that turned the reinforced alloy into molten slag. They tried flooding sections with toxic gas. Jake's modified body filtered it out without effort. They tried electrocuting him with the ship's internal systems. Jake absorbed the energy and used it to fuel his own powers, growing stronger with each failed attempt to kill him. The Krell had created something they couldn't control, and now they were paying the price. Jake reached the command bridge after 20 minutes of fighting through the ship's defenses. The massive doors that protected it were designed to withstand direct hits from capital ship weapons. He placed both glowing hands against the metal and poured energy into it. The doors didn't just melt. They vaporized, becoming superheated plasma that filled the corridor. Jake walked through the cloud of ionized metal like it wasn't there. Inside the bridge, the Krell second-in-command, a warlord named Krythos, stood with his personal guard. They had watched Jake's approach through internal cameras. They knew what was coming. "You cannot be human," Krythos said. "No human possesses such power." "I'm exactly human," Jake replied. "That's the problem. You tested us, pushed us, tried to make us into weapons. And it worked, but not the way you planned." "Kill him!" Krythos ordered his guards. They tried. Elite warriors in heavy armor, carrying the most powerful weapons the Krell possessed, all firing at once. Jake stood in the center of the firestorm and let them waste their ammunition. When they ran out of shots, he struck back. The bridge exploded into chaos. Guards flew backward as Jake's energy attacks tore through them. Equipment sparked and died. The view screens shattered. Krythos tried to flee, but Jake was too fast. He caught the warlord by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "You're going to give an order," Jake said. "You're going to tell every Krell ship in this system to withdraw. To leave New Terra and never come back. The Empire will never retreat," Krythos gasped. "We will send more fleets. Bigger fleets. We will crush your pathetic world." "Maybe," Jake said. "But you won't be alive to see it." He threw Krythos against the command console with enough force to shatter the warlord's armor. Before the guards could react, Jake had torn through them as well. In less than a minute, every Krell on the bridge was dead or dying. Jake sat in the command chair and accessed the ship's communication systems. His neural implants made interfacing with the Krell technology easy. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Jake Morrison, speaking to all Krell forces in the New Terra system," he said. "Your flagship is destroyed. Your warlord is dead. Your second-in-command is dead. You have lost this battle. You have one chance to survive. Withdraw now. Leave this system and never return. If you refuse, I will hunt down every ship in your fleet and kill everyone aboard." Silence answered him for a long moment. Then one by one, the Krell ships began to power up their faster-than-light drives. They were retreating. Jake watched them go, his body still glowing faintly with residual energy. He had done it! Against impossible odds, he had driven off an entire fleet. But as the last Krell ship vanished into hyperspace, Jake felt no satisfaction. He knew this was just the beginning. The Krell Empire would not forgive this defeat. They would come back with greater force, greater fury, greater determination to destroy humanity. And when they did, he would be ready. Jake took control of Ravager and piloted it down to New Terra's surface, landing it in a field outside New Providence. The massive warship settling onto the planet's surface was a sight that drew thousands of spectators. Elena was waiting when he emerged from the ship. She looked exhausted, relieved, and deeply conflicted. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it. The Krell are gone." "For now," Jake replied. He walked down the landing ramp, and Elena noticed that he was covered in blood, burns, and damage that would have killed a normal person. But he was healing even as she watched, his enhanced body repairing itself with impossible speed. "What happens now?" Elena asked. Jake looked up at the sky where the Krell fleet had been. "Now we prepare, because they'll be back. And when they come, we need to be ready. Not just New Terra, but all of humanity. Every colony, every settlement, every human in this part of space. That's impossible. The colonies don't have the resources or the technology to fight the Krell Empire." "They do now," Jake said, gesturing at Ravager. "This ship is intact. Its technology, its weapons, its faster-than-light drives. We can reverse engineer everything. Share it with the other colonies. Build a real defense." Elena understood. Jake wasn't just talking about saving New Terra. He was talking about uniting humanity, about transforming scattered vulnerable colonies into something that could stand against an empire. "That could take years," she said. "Then we'd better start now," Jake replied. Over the following weeks, New Terra became the center of a new movement. Jake's defeat of the Krell invasion had spread across human space faster than any faster-than-light transmission. He had become a legend, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when pushed to its limits. Representatives from other colonies arrived to see the captured Krell warship and to meet the man who had single-handedly changed the balance of power. Jake shared everything he knew about Krell technology, about his enhancements, about the weaknesses he had discovered in their military doctrine. Engineers worked around the clock to understand Ravager's systems. Scientists studied the wreckage of other Krell ships. Military strategists developed new tactics based on Jake's insights. Slowly, painfully, humanity began to organize itself for the war that was coming. Elena watched it all unfold with a mixture of pride and worry. Jake had become the leader of a movement he had never asked for. People looked to him for guidance, for hope, for salvation, and he bore that burden with quiet determination. But she also saw the cost. Jake's powers were growing stronger, but they were also changing him. He slept less, ate less, seemed less human with each passing day. The enhancements that had saved him were slowly transforming him into something else. One night she found him alone in the command center, studying tactical projections of the Krell Empire's territory. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Don't need to anymore," Jake said. "Not really. A few hours every couple days is enough." Elena sat beside him. "Are you okay?" "Define okay." Jake's smile was bitter. "I'm stronger than I've ever been. I can do things no human should be able to do. But sometimes I look in the mirror and I don't recognize the person looking back." "You're still Jake Morrison," Elena said. "Still the man who risked everything to save people he didn't know." "Am I? Sometimes I wonder if the Krell didn't turn me into exactly what they wanted. A weapon. Just one that turned against them." Elena took his hand. "A weapon doesn't choose who it protects. You did. That makes you human, no matter what else you are." Jake looked at her. and for a moment the exhaustion and loneliness in his eyes was almost overwhelming. Then he squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for believing that. I have to believe it," Alina said. "Because if you're not human, then what hope do the rest of us have?" 3 months after the battle, scouts reported Krell fleet movements near the edge of human space. A massive armada was being assembled, far larger than the first invasion force. The Krell were coming back, and they were bringing enough firepower to sterilize every human world. But humanity was ready. The colonies had united under a new banner, the Terran Defense Coalition. They had built new ships using captured Krell technology. They had trained soldiers in the tactics Jake had taught them. And they had something the Krell didn't have: a champion who could turn the tide of battles. The day the Krell Armada arrived, Jake stood on the bridge of humanity's first real warship, the Defiance, and watched the enemy fleet drop out of hyperspace. There were thousands of ships, maybe tens of thousands. It should have been hopeless. But Jake smiled, because the Krell had made a mistake. They had shown humanity what was possible. They had united the colonies through their aggression, and most importantly, they had created Jake Morrison. "All ships," Jake said into the communications array, his voice carrying to every human vessel in the fleet. "This is it. This is where we prove that humanity belongs among the stars. This is where we show the Krell and every other empire watching that we are not prey. We are predators, and we will not go quietly into extinction." The fleet roared its approval. And as the Krell Armada advanced, Jake felt his powers surge to life. The energy around him responded to his will, ready to be shaped into destruction. Elena stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder. The woman who had married him to save her people and ended up helping him save all of humanity. "Let's finish this," she said. Jake's eyes blazed with blue fire. "Let's finish this." The battle began, and the galaxy learned a new truth. Humanity had found its champion, and he was glorious in his fury.